The unwritten rules leaders should challenge. So, as you guys think about that for just
Mhm.
a second, unwritten rules that leaders should challenge. We started tipping into that earlier on in here when you're in a meeting and somebody says, well, that's how we've always done it.
Yeah.
Say, well, you can ask them the next question. We talk about questions in here. Well, why do you think we do it that way? What is the result?
Mhm.
Why do we do it that way?
Yeah.
If they don't have a good answer, you need to challenge that.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, welcome to Crossroad Conversations with the Lewis Brothers, where we aim to share real stories about running a successful family business, working through adversity, and pouring back into the community that keeps our door open. We're your hosts, Matt, Shelby, and Taylor, and we bring you relevant local business advice and automotive insights that are sure to change the way you look at running a business, and maybe even throw in a plug for you to do business with us.
Welcome back to Crossroad Conversation with the Lewis Brothers.
Mm.
We are the Lewis Brothers,
Yep.
and this is episode 57. This one's going to be fun today, breaking the rules.
Hey, so you want to break the rules? Can you get this done? Because it's the last day of the month and 30 minutes or less.
Let's do it. Strap
Uh,
in, put it in drive, open the nitrous tank, and here we go. Because today we're talking about rule breaking, not reckless rule breaking, okay?
No.
But the times of business and leadership when the following the playbook, it might hold you back.
Yep.
And you got to say, hey, hold this and watch this. All right. Most leaders are taught to follow best practices. And we've talked a lot about that in this episode or in this podcast. But best practices aren't always the right practices for your business. Rule breaking moments often create innovation, trust, and growth. Great leaders know when to play by the rules and then when to write their own.
I love that. Hey, if you didn't already tune in to last week's episode 56, we talk about the slow death of success. How to spot complacency as it's happening, as it's been happening, and what to do before it's time to pull the cord. So check that out, as always, our last episode.
Hey, check us out at lewissuperstore.com for the freshest specials, everything we've got going on in company wise. And as podcast wise, check us out at Crossroads Conversation Podcast.com online. Subscribe of whatever your listening channel is of podcast, YouTube, anything else like that. Hey, in the garage this week, God, I love this vehicle. It is like a billy goat. We talked about the Ranger last week, but the Ford Bronco Sport is the best of both worlds. It gets you the optimal fuel economy without sacrificing any off-road capability. You're talking about being able to go drive every single day, get 30 plus miles a gallon, then on the weekend go and engage the GOAT modes, which is everybody doesn't know that's the Bronco slogan of go over any terrain, go over any terrain. So they have everything from a Big Ben starting out at the $29,000 mark,
Okay.
all the way up to the Badlands. It is your rugged, capable, front rear lockers, Sasquatch package, off-road ready. It is an awesome unit, and you got to come check them out.
I'll tell you what I love about the Bronco Sport is just it's fun.
Yeah.
It's just fun.
Yeah.
It's an everyday driver. It's easy to maneuver. It gets great fuel mileage. Visibility's great out of it, but it's fun.
Yep.
It injects fun back into an affordable, capable vehicle.
That's what it is. It's not a stripped version of a Bronco or a
No.
cheater version. It's a smaller, more compact, just as capable. It's no different between the Jeep Wrangler
Sure.
and the old box Cherokee.
Yep.
Right? Just as capable. And new for this year, it's got modular front bumper. It's got tie downs on the side for your canoes or kayaks, which is just genius.
Sure.
It has new tech, so it's got a huge big screen. So it's not like you didn't get the technology of the wireless Apple CarPlay or all those things. And it's an affordable, so you can get into that Bronco segment for under 30 grand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just
Makes sense.
It just does. It just makes I was gonna say it just makes sense.
So let's take a Bronco Sport from our garage and put it in yours.
Let's do it.
Right? That's where it is. All right, this week we're talking about rules that hold businesses back. Right? You'd be like, no, I'm good. Like, no. There are some rules that needed to be there, but in certain times you need to know when to hold them and know when to fold them, right?
I think there's two categories in my brain. I want to get y'all's take on this, but there's two categories in my brain about like when you break the rules that you've done or you sway from them. Okay. And here's two categories. And I think the first one I say is where most people are going to go to in their mind of when they've not followed the rules, but they've had a good outcome. I don't mean about not following the rules and it got you in trouble. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Whether it's
yeah.
financially, legally, or whatever it may be. No, we're talking about where you actually had some success there. The first category is when you're in the middle of a situation or an issue, and it's more of a fight or flight decision.
With a customer, with an employee, just a situation that needs attention right then.
Right then, and you've heard us talk about on this podcast where you got to slow down and listen, make sure your emotions aren't involved. But I'm talking about a real situation
Yep.
where you're not even looking for the rule book. You're just making decisions based upon, your gut
Goes
and
back
your
to the gut we
experience.
talked about. Yep.
Yep, it does. So I think that's where most people go when we talk about, hey, breaking the rules, because they think about a situation where they had to act immediately and they didn't even look for the rule book.
Mhm.
I want to then go to the second category, and I think that's where we'll talk about here, is where you start talking about the rules of the way the industry is, or that's the way we've always done it.
Mhm. Yep.
And that's the area that I think may be holding businesses back. And we've heard us talk about this before, but we've been in business for 79 years, and we've sat in many meetings, and the three of us have looked at each other when employees said something, and we're like, where did that come from? When another employee says, well, this is how we do it. It's how we've always done it. I'm like, says who?
And
Did you guys say
that's
that?
important understanding layers deep,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about sitting in different areas and kind of seeing and just asking, hey, where'd that come from? Hey, I hadn't heard that in a while. Where'd that come from? And they're like, that's always how it's been done. So I think that's important there of understanding that gut feeling breaking the rules or that this is how we've done it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think both of those, when done uh, correctly, can be good, but when done incorrectly, because a lot of times, like you said, if they go with a gut feeling, but they don't have the production, then it was a lose-lose,
Mhm.
right? So that's important that you understand that it's okay to call that audible, but if you're that quarterback calling that audible or that sales manager or that manager calling that audible and it didn't turn out well,
Mm-hmm.
then you better learn from that. Don't waste that, but do not repeat that because it was not good.
Mhm.
And I would say, so on top of that, when you identify a rule, or I'm going to say a process too, because, the word process is used a whole lot more in business than
Yes.
rules. But your process is kind of like the rule, the way you do business. So if the explanation from your employees or your management is, we do that because we've always done it that way, or that's the way this industry does, it's time for you to reevaluate that.
Yeah.
And one, maybe it still is a good process, but nobody knows the meaning and the purpose anymore. They're now saying, hey, we're doing this because I was taught 20 years ago to do it this way. Well, but it's not just because you were taught to do that, it's because it equaled a great result. Or maybe it's not getting a great result anymore, and you need to break that rule, and we've got to develop a new one
Mhm.
that actually accomplishes what we're after.
And the biggest thing there is changes, right?
Mhm.
Industry changes, people changes, process
Sure.
changes will change what your process needs to be there. So think about that. Rules that sound safe, policies that sound safe to cover you, which some are necessary,
Mhm.
oftentimes will cap growth. Thinking grow slow and steady,
Yep.
which is very important. We see vendors all the time that we sign up with, we like because they're a niche market. Then they're like, hey, if 2 people are good, or if 20 clients are good, and if 50 clients are good, then 150x our revenue, then they can't handle that, right? So that's where slow and steady is good. But think on the other side, if you don't take risk in
Yep.
your marketing or you only hire people with current industry experience, you may never know.
I think an easy way to relate this, Shelby, maybe for our audience to understand this is first, and I know we're going to get to this later, but don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I want to relate that to the investing world. All right. So when you look at somebody's portfolio of investing, it's not, hey, put all my money in one thing.
Yeah.
It's depending upon what stage you're at, put some of it in safe, putting some of it in risk, and putting some of it in high risk. Now, you define that however you want to,
Yeah.
but you're not putting it all in high risk, which high risk would be like breaking the rules.
Yep.
There could be great upside to it, but you don't want to bet the entire farm on it.
So with the employees, do not get all the same type of person,
That's a great point.
right? You're not just getting the run of the gun, I follow no rules, and you can keep them in the bounds. That's okay to have one or two, right?
Uh-huh.
Because when they hit big.
Mhm.
Yeah.
right? You're like, whoa, you turned 400 hours?
Mhm.
Like, I know it was crash, boom, bang, but the job got done correctly. It was a little uh, unorthodox ish, but you did it correctly.
Sure.
You didn't really break any industry rules.
Mhm.
Uh, but if you have all of those, it's a scheduling nightmare.
Yeah.
It's a where are my people at nightmare. But if you have multiple different ones and you got the slow and steady gray mare, you got the crazy racehorse, you've got the long shot you don't know anything about,
Mhm.
and then that helps kind of diversify.
It really does. So then it allows you to do both because then on your risk side over there, if you see the upside potential, you move and that becomes then steady growth there. You move more over that way.
Yeah.
One of the things in our industry we need to talk about that were the rules forever, but we've needed to break, and we've talked a lot about this recently, is when we give customers figures on buying a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you look at how the rules were forever in the automotive industry, it was, hey, don't give people values on the vehicle they're buying, on their trade and monthly payment and down payment until they're ready to buy.
Yep.
You know, so it was in the past, it was like, hey, they're just going to take your numbers and they're going to go shop with everybody else.
Mhm.
And
So I have to stop you and point this out. I just saw this morning
okay,
about giving numbers. This seems basic, but in our industry, it's a lot of school hard knocks.
it
It
is.
drives us nuts.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Because we know what we know, but getting the team. So this comes from car dealership guy. This came across this morning. It says one of this year's biggest wins for car shoppers is clarity at the deal table. Says nearly half of dealers reported higher customer satisfaction, and 84% of those cases buyers pointed to clear deal details as the reason.
Mm,
The biggest operators aren't bearing fees in fine print anymore. Like all the details up front.
yeah.
Like I think we're the only person in the state of Arkansas that has our doc fee
Yep.
On the
on
list.
the website. There will be no other dollar added to the deal.
That's
Nope.
what you
I
buy
assure-
for.
That's exactly what you can see it online. Everyone qualifies for. And the payoff to this is more trust and more repeat business, which everyone wants,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? A clear deal.
You know, I go to the real estate industry on that when you bring that up, and nobody likes this, but they understand it because it's clear before you go close on a piece of property or on a house, you get, you get your HUD
Yeah.
settlement and it's going to, there's 8 gazillion fees on
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Okay. But they're all listed out and it's clear. And before you go close, you know exactly to the penny how much you're
Yep.
doing for that. That's a major shift in our business
Mhm.
that we've been talking about. Give everybody figures, meet them where they are,
Yep.
give them the trade value, give them your best price, give them estimates on monthly payments, so on and so forth. So that's a rule that we've broken because there needed to be a new process put in place for today's customer.
Yeah, it's no different than we said, don't mark up the rate.
Yep.
What the bank gives us the rate for, we'll give it to you.
And how many people looked at us like, you are nuts?
They
You're
still
crazy.
do. In our 20 groups, any industry person's like, you're crazy. You're throwing away money. And we said clarity and transparency, transactional units in operation is our goal.
And I think that's when you're able to have these multiple hats on and visions of short-term gain and long-term gain at the
Yeah.
same time. Because when we made that massive decision, not only did we do that, we still bonused our finance managers on loss of income there
Yep.
because we knew it was worth the investment from our perspective. We could get more deals because customers were getting lower rates because we didn't mark up the rate at all. It was a buy sell.
Mhm.
And in turn, we got more customers. Then it would keep them in our cycle more because nobody else was beating the rates. They're
Yep.
more likely to come back to us the next time.
Mhm.
So again, there's another great example on how we broke the rules.
All right, that was 15 minutes.
That's not bad. I got one more for you though before we got to go on to the next part.
Uh-huh.
Let me tell you where else we broke the rules.
Tell me.
Okay.
We stopped scheduling oil changes.
Right? And when the
No
kickback
appointment.
was so deep from that, the manufacturer was here and said, why are you not? Because they had a tool,
Sure.
right? And they were like, you need to open up more availability and said, why don't you come down here and let's show this to you?
Absolutely.
And so we showed them that we could do like 50% more than their scheduler would ever allow by saying, and then here's a secret that they didn't want to know that if one was full, we had double the capacity 28 steps away. They didn't want to see it, but we didn't care. And so we broke that industry rule.
Yep.
Because we saw other people doing it.
We saw other people do it.
They were not specifically
not OEM,
OEMs.
not OEM. And I think that's what's important is we talk about it all the time, like rise above so you can see the entire forest. We saw everybody else that was out there doing it great. We said, why are we following this 1970s procedure from the OEMs? Break those rules and let's go here. And if it blows up, we can go back to scheduling.
And which it did a little bit. That there was people like, no, we'd created the habit of scheduling, so we had to go back to the team and say, hey, no appointment's necessary, but if they want to make one, make one.
Yeah.
And stand out there with bells on and say, welcome, Mr. Smith, for your appointment. We have a bay waiting for you.
Yeah,
and they were like, what? We aren't. What are we doing? It's like, yes.
Both.
People probably hate us for that because I'll say, look, I need you to not do anything else except do this unless you see somebody that needs something. And they're like, what? And I'm like, I need you with a trucker headset out on the lot, greeting people and making all your phone calls. And like, so you want me to make my phone calls or you want me to greet people? I said, both. Trucker headset. Microphone up means that you're ready to talk to the people. Microphone down means you're talking to people.
You're in it.
And you might take your headset off and hand it to someone else and you talk to them and you talk to them.
The championship teams have the ability to do that.
I know.
In the moment.
That's where we're going.
And we hold high level of accountability. We're not there yet, but we are for sure pushing to that. All right, which automaker nearly collapsed in the 2000s because they ignored key safety and quality rules? That's a big one.
Yeah.
They ignored key safety and quality rules. Was it A, Ford, B, Chrysler, C, General Motors, or D, Toyota? I'd like to throw out the first two just because there are brands.
Ford and Chrysler.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Selfishly.
Then that leaves you General Motors or Toyota.
I'm trying to remember which one was probably the last that you saw metal keys, because that's what they're talking about, that the key didn't have the correct programming or safety features or anything else. But
It's General Motors.
It's General Motors. Yeah, it's General Motors.
yes, absolutely. Hey, dive into when rule breaking backfires. So when you go past the threshold of what you really need to do in the moment there. So bold versus reckless, line between smart risk and shortcuts.
I'm going to say right there, this is what stands out in my mind. When it backfires is when you leverage too much and you put too many eggs in one basket.
Yep.
We started talking about it before. But if you're going to try something new, like no appointment scheduling or this or that, you still have to think, okay? If it blows up, is it going to bury our business? No. We could have lost a little bit of customers in the short term. We can pivot, put scheduling back in place, and keep rocking on.
I think the important part is learning when to pivot and adapt. And it's not from the noise, right? The noise is important of like, this will never work, the naysayer noise, but of just actually like being in the field and talking to customers and then being able to, it's kind of like the EV, like, oh, should we buck this trend? Should we buck this trend? What should we do? Like, okay, we're going to go in. We're not going to go all in. We're not saying, hey, Ford, let's just make electric vehicles, but then being able to quickly adapt. Same thing on the appointments for the oil changes versus not needing those. And then saying, hey, we're going to adapt. And it's okay that we were wrong or we missed a little bit, but you can't just, the bold and reckless, sometimes people start taking shortcuts because it's easier.
Yeah.
And then the results aren't there like we talked about. And it's like, hey, so you need to have your systems check along the way, at midway through the day or into the days of the month. And you're going, hey, in the first quarter, in the second quarter, and then third quarter, like, hey, how's this going? Okay, we let this guy set his own schedule, said he can come and go as he please, but he had to hit 20 units this month. Okay, it's halfway through the month. We're at 4 car deals. Let's have a checkup.
Yeah.
We're not reeling him all the way back in where we're saying, hey, here's what's going on. Then 3/4 of the way through the month, we're saying, hey, here's where we're at. You were supposed to be at 16. We're now at 7.5. Here's what I want to do. And you're not going to say, you be here tomorrow at 8. You stay through 7. What you're going to do, because you need some buy-in, and say, hey, let's try this. I see some opportunity, and I just sent out a mail piece, and I just did a bunch of direct mail that's going to the customers, and they're coming directly to this building to see you guys. Do you think it would be okay for the next 5 days? I could get you somewhere from an 8 to a 6:30 to 6:45 if I was able to show you how to go from 8 car deals to 20 car deals.
Yep.
Sure.
Right? And then after whatever happens there, you're like, hey, that was bold that we changed that a little bit. Thank you for being adaptable. Now, what's our hybrid system for you to be able to work your own schedule, but also get your units in production?
Yeah, and I think like when you talk about this about backfiring on bold versus being reckless, with the amount of information out there on podcasts just like ours, or you're talking about car dealership guy, with all that stuff out there, you probably can learn from somebody
Yeah.
else
Oh,
before you
yeah.
put this in place, and your team still thinks that it is revolutionary wise. It
Mhm.
might not have been in automotive,
Mhm.
but another industry did it. So you can be bold with doing something that the other OEMs are not doing up and down in the road, but you're not reckless because you saw the case study at Procter and Gamble or at XYZ.
And let me tell you, even the brass tacks of that, sometimes you think you lose credibility if you don't say, "This is my idea."
Mm-hmm.
It's the other way around. If you'll say, "Hey guys, I've been studying this for the last 6 months and Procter and Gamble has spent $8.4 million on this,"
Mm-hmm.
or "Hey, this industry or Chevy's been doing this," or "Hey, we saw this over
Sure.
at Walmart." They've already worked this out. Now we're going to adapt it to automotive because no one's done it.
Yep.
And you think like, "No, you're the leader. You need to bring the idea." Copy somebody else's idea that's already proven, and they're like, "Walmart's doing it. It's got to be proven, right?"
I think you hit on the next point too there is in order for it to not be reckless, you still need your team's buy-in.
Yep.
No doubt.
And again, we're not talking about the situation where the building's on fire. We're talking about going a new way,
Mhm.
but you still need buy-in.
Yep.
Because when it becomes reckless is when you're on the island by yourself and you're hollering at the team back on shore instead of explaining to them, we're all going to the island together and here's how we're going to do
Yep.
this.
And probably how you keep that in line is process and controls, kind of going areas you shouldn't bypass.
Hmm.
So areas you shouldn't bypass of talk about, quality, finance, logic or legal and ethical thoughts,
That
kind of how you
That's
gauge that.
all of those areas, whether it's your quality, like in your repair stuff,
Hmm.
or you doing what you said you're gonna do,
Mm-hmm.
even when no one's looking. Finance, your legal, your ethics, or your safety. There's no shortcut or there are no rule breaks to any of those. And your team needs to know very clearly, like, hey, we're gonna be adaptable, we're gonna be nimble, and we are gonna pivot when necessary. And when we find something that works, we're gonna go all in, but nowhere is it okay. And you've heard us talk about it before. Even if it says it makes a couple extra $1 million, we haven't seen one of those ideas yet, but even if it makes a couple extra $1 million to go against any of those things, the quality,
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
even if you find a shortcut on a recall and it says, hey, it takes 8 hours to do this, but you can pop the valve cover and look underneath this cam phaser and you can see it's okay. So you button it back up. Absolutely not.
No.
You do the whole job. In finance, if you could fudge the income so it was an auto approval, absolutely not.
Yep.
And legal of putting this person's name on it versus that person, absolutely not. So in all those things, your ethics and your safety, without putting your harness or your helmet or your safety glasses on, absolutely not. And that has to be very clear.
And those are the filters you just put in place. And you can have your meeting, and everybody can be wound up and brainstorming, and you just know we will pause and we will run it through the filters you just talked about before we will proceed forward.
Yep.
So you cannot lose contact with the ground on that. Okay.
No.
And if it legally doesn't work or it messes and it tarnishes your name or what you're about, it's one of those bad eggs like on Willy Wonka. You know
Uh,
what I mean?
And
Down.
That's where you'll always find, especially one of us in there, that we're happy go lucky, everything else. But as soon as it gets over that threshold, now I'm not going to embarrass somebody and just whip them out in front of everybody. But you better believe that there will be a conversation of hard
yep,
line. Don't do that again
yep.
or bad at.
And it doesn't matter who and it doesn't matter what, right? The rules are the rules. And if you see somebody that's flirting with the idea, then you're like, no, here's what we said we would do,
Yeah.
and we're going to do it. I don't care what the deal looks like. We already committed to it.
Yeah.
We already said we would do this. I don't care where you messed up. You get out there with your smiley face.
Yep.
Tell them congratulations.
Mm.
And then you and I are going to sit down and see where the heck did we mess up. We, i.e.,
Yep.
you,
Yeah.
but we're going to say we
Sure.
and go through that because that's a judge of their character. And if their character slips by doing it one time,
Yeah.
just like we talked about in the clear process, then that's not your people.
And we have a radar out for that pretty high, especially if we hire somebody that has an experience at a different store,
Yeah.
because we see that. And we even talk about that, during an interview or during onboarding. But we know at some point in time it's going to be tested,
Always.
especially on a day like today when it's the end of the month and they're a couple car deals away from their goal, that's when it'll poke its head out.
Yeah.
And that's when emotions are going to get involved. But
Mhm.
then that's when you really get to lay it down going, nope, it's not worth it to hit that. That does not line up with our ethics and legal and what we said we would uphold.
Yep. Putting those policies in place, having guardrails up to let you experiment, go past those rules without lighting the business on fire, without going past the threshold is really
And oftentimes, what's really helped us, from our CFO to our controller to our
Mhm.
office manager
Mhm.
to deal clerks to finance managers, there's multiple layers of backstops that are non-biased, that don't care who you are,
Sure.
Yep.
what your job role is. And it's not, I'm trying to hurt your feelings or not trying to call you out, not because I've already called you out 4 times today. It's the rules are the rules and this was not followed. So what's going on?
Yep.
Right. And those people help you have no emotions evolved to say, this was wrong, this was right. We have a pattern. Let's look at this. That's super important there. All right. Mythbuster time. You guys ready?
Let's do it.
Tradition is always safe. If it worked before, it'll keep working. Tradition is always safe. If it worked before, it'll keep working. All right, what's your thoughts?
I think that's a trap. I really do.
Yeah.
And what that does is keeps you from evolving and moving forward. I think that's just really the reason I pause there is because it's a touchy subject for a lot of businesses that have been highly successful, and you never have to lose sight of what you're about, what your ethics, the way you do business,
Mhm.
your morals. But then there are things that do need to be adapted and changed because the industry's changed. So I actually think it can hinder you and keep you from moving forward.
Yep. I totally agree with that. Like, traditions are very good, and it's what you're from, it's what you're about. But just the same way that people update logos with
Yep.
good feedback from
Mhm.
people, not just your inner circle, right? It's okay to update those things, but just do a little bit of inspection there. We saw that with the Cracker Barrel thing. It's like,
Mhm.
whoa, hang on.
Yeah.
Like, let's really ask all the people, not
Sure.
just a few niche people, but be willing to adapt. Because I'll tell you that with Cracker Barrel, they made a change and said we ask all the people, they love it. Well, the internet said no way, no way. And so then Cracker Barrel was smart enough, like enough damage had been done that they didn't dig their feet in the ground. And they said, actually, we've heard you and we're going back.
That's
Yeah.
right.
We're going back, right, to some tradition.
Mhm.
So it's about having a balance. So that is busted.
Busted.
Markets, customer needs, and technology constantly evolve,
Mhm.
are always evolving. Traditions can become traps if you never change them.
That's right. You know, the unwritten rules leaders should challenge. So as you guys think about that for just
Mhm.
a second, unwritten rules that leaders should challenge. We started tipping into that earlier on in here is, when you're in a meeting and somebody says, well, that's how we've always done it.
Yeah.
Say, well, you can ask them the next question. We talk about questions in here. Well, why do you think we do it that way? What is the result?
Mhm.
Why do we do it that way?
Yep.
If they don't have a good answer, you need to challenge that
Yeah.
Yeah.
and go, okay, what is the purpose?
Yep.
And again, we're not talking about because it's the law. We're not talking about because it's in contract with the finance companies that we would put the correct income down because it's the legal and the moral, ethical, right thing to do. No, we're talking about things about like dress codes, for example. We're talking about how to write customers up, how to, like a repair order up, how to communicate with them, how we sell a car,
Yep.
when we present figures. The first one that's on the list here, and I'll bring this up because it's an easy one to talk about. We'll talk about dress codes. If you look through the years in our industry on what that looked like, there was a time where it was suit and tie every single day that everybody wore.
Yeah, no doubt.
It was suit and tie. And then it moved to where it was just tie and button up shirt.
Mhm.
And now it's evolved to more of a polo style, still professional, but more approachable.
Yes.
And that's evolved. And if you didn't evolve, there's some customers in our industry, and we're Streamline Automotive that we sell, that they would kind of feel out of place if we were all in suit and tie every single day.
Oh, yes.
I think it's just looking and seeing, you have to be adaptable. We haven't gone to just, hey, wear whatever you want,
Correct.
right? You know what I mean? We're not just saying, hey, wear whatever you want. I think our unwritten but written rule is you can wear, the dress code that's provided,
Mhm.
the button-up shirt, a white shirt, gray shirt, or black shirt, or above,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? So
Sure.
we have to have the baseline of appearance so that you're professional. Because what happens if there's no written rule? It's pure chaos.
You have to have a written rule because if not, it gets out of control.
Yeah, you go to Lowe's and you don't know who's there to help you,
Mhm.
right? And I'm not talking about when we used to have blue shirts, but
Sure.
you're like, hey, so you have to be clearly identifiable as I work here and I'm able to help you,
Yeah.
right? And so that's the idea. And then we said, hey, there is some leisure for our non-customer facing employees. Let's give them Lewis logo stuff that is not a dress shirt,
Yeah.
right? And so we've just tried to stay adaptable. Like in our Friday, our kickoff events and our
Mhm.
Fridays, like we want to embrace, and that's gone from last year. It was the day before the Super Bowl or the Friday before Super Bowl. Everyone got to wear the game day attire. Well, this year marketing was like, hey, they didn't know any better. I love it, and they
Sure.
were like, hey, every Friday, and that would normally be Razorback Friday.
Mhm.
They're like, hey, wear your favorite team, and it's been fun,
That
right?
has
And
been
then it was
fun.
like, you can wear jeans,
Sure.
wear
Yeah.
some joggers that are professional,
Yeah.
right? Wear your favorite kit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Uh, and you can see just the smiles come out in people, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
so there's some adaptability there.
I think what you gotta be careful of there, and we've set a good enough example, but I'm just reminding everybody else, you gotta be careful there is, "Hey, no, that was on Friday."
Yeah.
Okay, that doesn't mean now Monday, Tuesday,
Reboot.
Wednesday,
Mm.
you all of a sudden you have jeans and untucked shirt.
Yeah.
You still have to have rules, you just have to adapt as the change of time adapts.
Yeah, because
Yep.
otherwise it loses its luster.
It does, and then all of a sudden it's like, "Well, who works here and who doesn't?"
Yeah, right. Who's the dude in the Lakers jersey over there on a Wednesday? Like, does he work here
Yeah.
or?
It's no different than Halloween when we all dress up in costumes. Like,
Yeah.
everybody's dressing up together. You can tell that's the culture of the day,
Yeah.
and it's not like, "Well, I just decided to order, this Halloween costume because it came 50% off, and I'm gonna wear it during Thanksgiving."
No,
Like,
no,
what?
no, thank you. Like, you can do that on your own time.
So,
So,
you still gotta have those rules in
yeah.
there.
Yeah, no, it's so important to have that, but then allowing to be structured in that, but then doing those different things really opens it up to the customer, to the employees to have that different type of experience at your
And I think you gotta adapt that way too. What
Yes.
do you guys think about outdated assumptions that stifle growth? So when you start thinking about that, of assumptions like that people like just assume, here's what I do, but it's really, and I'm talking about from an employee standpoint, because then it slows growth down.
I think there's a good part in job roles and
Yeah.
responsibilities,
Hmm.
that I would say is one of my first go-tos is, okay, my job, what does that entitle to me to do in a daily, right? Like, what are my roles and responsibilities? Like, if I just went through that. So I think there's some outdated assumptions of what a sales manager does, what a
Hmm.
salesperson, what a delivery specialist, what a service advisor, what assistant service advisor does. So that's something that in the last year we've gone through and slowly updated those positions, and most of them uh, all say at the bottom, and all other things that are seen to be needed in your position or any and all departments,
Hmm.
Mhm.
right? Because we realized if it wasn't written down, then it wasn't assumed, and then they were just like, that's not my job, which is not the culture. I go over that every single cake day of thanking everyone for going above and beyond.
Yep.
That every time we have an employee of the month, it's, hey, this person does way more
Hmm.
than their job role says they need to.
Hmm.
But I think that's one of those things that can be an outdated assumption of, no, I'm just to do this.
I'm going to take the flip side of that. I'm going to take exactly what you said because we have some people, all different personalities in our business, and some people that are very strict rule
Yeah.
followers. Okay. And if you come out with a new way to do a position or handle a situation,
Mhm.
and if you don't tell them you don't need to do the old way anymore, we have found some people following the rules. Like, why are you still doing that? Well, that's what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
So you didn't update them to say, okay, here's the new one, take the old one out. And I've scratched my head before. And, if you're not that way and you can pivot, which we all
Yeah.
can, you logically think if we're doing the new one, I don't need to do the old
Mhm.
one. But I promise you, you have employees that are still doing both.
Yeah.
They're still doing both,
You have
which
to
is
be
crazy.
super clear, and that's something we're like, "What the heck? Why is that person still parking there? Or why are they not doing this?" It's because we were as clear as mud, right?
Yeah.
We just said, "Here's a excuse me, here's a new game plan. Here's what we're doing moving forward. If you have any questions, let me know." They're never gonna come to you and say, "Hey, I've got questions." I mean, rarely someone will, but then be like, "Am I supposed to still do this one and that one?"
Yeah.
And you're like, "My bad." Hey, this supersedes the old one, so
Yeah.
you cannot assume that anyone knows anything.
And so I think that that's when then it'll stifle growth. And I'll tell a funny story here. So we have one of our managers that I had consistently sent information to and podcast and books to read and this and that. And he had latched on to a person that was doing podcast. This is 4 years ago. And he'd latched onto them, and it's not been 6 months ago that this person came back up to me, and they said, "So and so you sent to me, their stuff's kinda getting outdated. Should I listen to anybody else?" And I'm like, "Whoa." I was like, "Yeah." I said, "Look, can I share something with you?" At any point in time, I got 10 or 15 different
Yeah,
people
yeah,
coming in here because some people don't get on highs and lows, but that was they were stifling their own growth
yeah.
because they were just caught in that one rut of a podcast I had
Told him 4
told
years
about
ago.
4 years ago, and just because I hadn't shown them a new one, they hadn't gotten out of that rut.
I think that's specifically giving them fish to eat or teaching them how to fish. And sometimes we're teaching them how to fish without saying, "Hey, I'm teaching you how to fish. I'm teaching you how to learn." And so for the next time, I'm not going to bring you another one.
Mm,
You go find one that you like. Like, here's how you do it. Because otherwise, they're just sitting there
like, "What do I
and waiting for the
do?"
next fish. And you're like, "No, no, no. I taught you how to fish."
Mhm.
And they're like, "Oh, I thought you were just putting me down here to receive."
I think the biggest thing to wrap all this up, and you used a parts terminology of superseding. In our parts department, that means when a new part number comes out, it supersedes the old one. You can no longer order that old part number. It won't even
Yep,
let you do it. It's got a new updated part that the manufacturer has fixed whatever issue was with that part.
yep,
It superseded it.
okay.
And I think that's a great reminder to me too, is when we come out with something new, more than likely it superseded something that was old. And if we don't talk about that, that will stifle growth there. How questioning norms unlocks creativity and opportunity. And I love this one, and this one will not come to life in your business if you don't do it.
Mhm,
Your employees are not going to question the normalcy of how you advertise, how your processes are, when lunch break is, when benefits come out, all these things. It's your job to question that stuff. And especially when they see you question something that you came out with, they're like, okay, this person's adaptive and open to changing even what they put in place.
yep. Yeah, no, that's really good.
I think if you not always control the things yourself, if
Mm,
you allow to have somebody outside of your headspace or outside of your department, it's no different than Craig and his marketing team is like, "Hey, I'm gonna let you guys handle this, and I
mhm.
want you to get creative control because it's gonna be a complete different idea than what you had,
Sure.
and as long as it's relevant and brings in what you need, then I think that's great, right? That's questioning the normal of, no, I'm the one that always comes up with this and does this. And one, you're bogging yourself down with stuff you didn't need to bog yourself down with, and two, they have a complete different outlook.
Mhm.
You said something the other day, and this is kind of pointless because I can't remember specifically what it was, but you were talking about it on the kickoff Friday, and you said, "Hey, we need to do this, this, and this." And I said, "Marketing's already done that." He's like, "Oh, never mind, that was a bad idea." And I said, "No, it wasn't a bad idea. Someone else just came up with it and already
Yeah.
executed it, right?"
Yes.
Yeah.
And so allowing to get out of the norm of doing this and this unlocks new creativity and new opportunity.
Absolutely.
The hard thing, and I was talking about this with one of y'all the other day, you can, look this back and, reference it to, like, your kid growing up. Whenever you start to not do the norm of, "I'm doing this every single day," and let your other managers, your other department heads start to run, learn to walk, everything through the process of you pulling back, they're gonna trip and fall, they're gonna mess up. It's okay. I had removed myself from a spot that I always sit at, more so just to gauge, not to do anything in there, but just to hear and always know what's going on. And I'd removed myself for a couple days and X, Y, and Z happened. And I went back, I was like, come on, you're telling me I've sat here for this long and you hadn't picked up and you can't do this? So you have to know that you have to let them make mistakes, be there to be able to help them and guide them.
Mhm.
But if you want that area to grow, not being the norm,
Mhm.
you have to let them grow.
One last thing I want to bring up here, and it probably should have brought it up earlier, but I think it's a great example. We can all relate to this. We all live in the whole Walmart country. And when you talk about breaking the rules, but not letting it really affect your business. We talked about the investment side, take a smaller chunk and put it in higher risk. When you look at Walmart, and it's funny because we were at P Ridge last weekend, so we were talking about this. Walmart broke the rules on delivering stuff to houses, and they didn't know for sure if it was gonna work, so that amount of investment they put, and they said, "If it works, great. If it doesn't, it's not gonna cripple our business."
Yep.
And then they opened up a couple different places. Out in Farmington, they had the drone that did delivery. When we were up in Pea Ridge, they had I don't even know what they call that, the
It's
airplane
like an airplane.
slingshot
It's a
thing.
slingshot and comes and lands kind of in a net or a cable. So two same ideas
Yes.
of going to you, right?
Yeah.
Without a vehicle on the road, but two complete different ways of how to do
And
it.
so then they said, "Okay, let's break the rules without it breaking the business.
Yeah.
We set this amount aside."
Yep.
It's no different than if I go to the horse race track, which I don't go very often, I set aside, "Hey, I'm gonna spend a couple $100, and when that's out, it's out."
It's okay.
And I had fun, but I didn't leverage the house. It didn't affect my family's well-being.
Los
It
Alamitos.
didn't put us all the way under. That's the same thing. It's okay to take risk
Yeah.
and break the rules.
Yeah.
Just
Calculated.
don't leverage your business.
Yep. 100% there. Hey, going into a question here. What's one rule you followed for way too long before realizing it was actually holding the business back?
So I've been racking my brain. I looked at that and was like, but I have one. So I'll go ahead and then you
Go.
can figure out yours.
Okay.
It's actually exactly what you were just talking about.
Okay.
And so you talked about, and it's funny because we talk about and seem like we have all the answers figured out. We don't, I assure you. Most of the time we're just talking about like, whoops, don't do that. Uh, is when we have changed a CRM, when we have changed a service write-up tool, when we have changed anything that's a system or a process, one of our biggest downfalls, because generally we are very committal people. When we're in, we are all in. I have not been very good at sample testing things.
Mm.
To say, hey, I'm like, Craig, we're going to do this. Let's run this against the whole company. Well, then we don't really have alternate options to see was traffic off just as a norm or it was because the marketing new campaign was just bad.
Mhm.
So then we don't have those different sample tests. So the rule that we have to continue to break is to not put all the eggs in one basket to switch to this. The problem is we wanted to be able to change that, vet it, and then be able to train the entire team on it.
Mm.
And so sometimes that would definitely stun our growth if it was not a good move or if there was a large training moment or a downsize moment for the customers as we learned and trained on that.
That's good. I'll tell you mine. It's a pretty easy one. Y'all will relate as soon as I said that. As soon as I say this, is the strict rule of everybody in variable has to work every single Saturday.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was one. And then finally, when we broke that and we said, "Hey, let's give salespeople at least a Saturday off a month. Let's give managers at least a Saturday off a month. And if somebody's selling enough, let's give them every Saturday off if they
Yeah.
needed to be." And that really held us back from recruitment side
Yep.
for people that had stuff going on with their family,
Mm-hmm.
and retention side.
Yep.
So once we changed that, it was business actually went up.
Right.
We thought we were going to lose it because we didn't have everybody here on Saturday, but it actually went up. Our retention of people in variable went up
Yep.
because we broke one of the other rules.
Yeah. And it's important to measure that and realize it'll be okay, right? With proper
Be all right.
structure and procedures.
Still have to have the structure.
It is super important. And then when they come to you and they're like, hey, I only sold 18 last month. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, let me help break that down per your time. Let me put some value on your time. You left at 3 every single day and you only worked one Saturday.
Yeah.
And they're like, huh, okay, that's pretty good. It's like, okay, just want to keep us all in check. You have a great day. I'll be here till 7:30. But if you need anything, let me know. Right?
Yeah, both of those are really good. Y'all hit on both areas that I think would be something that's definitely held us back there, and we've grown moving forward. But great episode today. Went through a lot. It was expedited, as Shelby said, last day of the month, so we're putting it together. But absolutely bringing you relevant content that will make difference in
bet.
your business if you'll put it in place. Always check us out at lewissuperstore.com to check out the specials, and at crossroadsconversationpodcast.com. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Please hit us with any questions that you do have, so that way we can bring you on the show bring those on the show and be relevant to you and your business. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure and give it a like, share it with your friends and family, and visit our website to send us questions about what you would like to know about the automotive industry or family business in general. Who do you want to hear from? Send them our way and we'll do our best to answer any questions that you have. Thank you again, and we'll see you in future shows.